What's up, guys? Welcome back to Mike It Yourself, and we're going to turn this speedometer into that. Let me show you how. Alright guys, so what we got here is the speedometer, tachometer 5-inch combo from Harley Davidson, and we're going to put this on our 2007 Road King. Let's see here if I can figure out how to open the box. I think that's probably step one. All right, anyhow. So the kit comes with everything you need, and it should be a self-install. Like, you don't need to go to the dealership to have them do any programming. It's not exactly plug and play. And what I mean by that is there is a step in this that you have to follow to essentially kind of like program it. So there you go. You got your Tach, and of course your digital display there, which will, you get your error codes, all that stuff. It's got additional lights. I don't know if they work with the 07 because I don't have ABS, right? So I don't know what does and doesn't work in this mix, but what I do like is you get your RPM gauge, which if you don't like just to look at it alone, if you're like me and you want to monitor it, then it's good to have. So you also get, I think they call this the data interface cable. So you basically plug that into the backside of the speedometer. We're going to put this into our data port, and that will download the mileage to this speedometer, and then we can install it. So let me get the bag off, the saddle bag, so we can get to the actual data port, and we'll walk through that installation. Okay, so we got my bags off. I've got a small leak in one of my airlines, so I got both off. But out of habit too, I went to the left bag first because on the Road Glide, that's where that data port is. But apparently on these, on the 07 at least, it is right there. There's your data port. Anyhow, so the first step Harley tells you to do is to write down your mileage. So we're going to go ahead and do that right up front, just in case, right? So we go into the on position, and that's trip meter B time. All right, there we go. So we've got 16,896. This thing's still a baby. All right, so we can go ahead and turn that off and hook up our Speedo, the new Speedo, to the data port so we can download that data. So this should be a very easy process. You take the data cable provided. It's got a channel there that fits there, so you can only put it in one way. You plug that in. Take the little rubber cork out of that data port. Plug that in, and based on the instructions, they say as soon as you turn on your bike, this thing will start showing a percentage. It'll get to 100, it'll say checking, and then it'll say okay. Once we see okay, then it's done doing its piece and we can actually install. There you go. Now hopefully you saw that pretty good. It literally ran through that percentage so fast, said check for about maybe 2 seconds, and now it says okay. So we can turn that off. The programming is done. All right, so this dash removal should be pretty simple. We got this Allen here that hides under that little Harley cover. We've got our awesome phone dealio there. And you got the ginormous nut that sits right on top. Oop. And then you drop stuff. So once you got those two things undone, you can lift it up and expose the mounting for your Speedo. Now before I flip this over, let me go get a rag for my tank, or a towel. I need a towel. All right, so now that we have this flipped over, I want to, hopefully I can capture this well. So you get these clips that are holding this in place. So we'll actually disconnect the speedometer cable. Just be careful when you're doing, like I'm being stupid and using a screwdriver to pull this clip up, but I'm being like extra gentle with it. But if you've done this before, you already know it doesn't take much to goof things like that up. Okay, so we got one side. There we go. All right, so I've disconnected the deal just to give me a little bit more space in this, but you got these 3 tabs and you've got to get, there's just a little bit of room there. See that? I can get this little screwdriver in there, and you want to get your screwdriver to kind of pry it out a little bit and give your gauge room to unclip itself. So get that one. And once you get one, it's kind of easy. There you go, see that? And then you just slide that out in the front, and then you're gonna have to take this rubber ring off. You got to reuse this. I recommend remembering what's the bottom versus the top, just in case there's like a, you know, molding thing or whatever. Anyhow, we got the old one out, and we're gonna go ahead and put the new one in. Make sure I got that ring right. Get the little plastic out of the way. I know some people like to, you want to ASMR that stuff, that's cool, whatever. That's on you. All right, just make sure you remember what side is up when you do this. And oh, before I put this in, just so you know, there is a slit, so this actually goes like, you know, with the dash frame in it. So just keep that in mind. It might be easier to actually, let's try that. To put this in place before we put the gauge in. And that way we're not having to use like a flathead or anything to try to manipulate it in place and end up tearing it or something like that. All right. Get your little plastic in place, and mine has 2 pins. I think some bikes only have 1 pin, but essentially that's what keeps it from rotating on you. So you want to make sure you're lined up with your pins, and then bring your gauge in from the front. You may have to press down on that rubber ring to allow it to pass through. Once you got it there, you may have to rotate your gauge a little bit, like I got mine. Yeah. Definitely not in the right spot. Make sure I was that off. Alright. And then you just push down until your plastic clicks. Once those are in, check your rubber ring, make sure you're good there on your seal. We're good. Plug it back in. If you undid any of the little clampy things, get those, and then flip it over and put it back on. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and turn this on, see what this thing looks like. Remember, we should get like a 16K mileage if it downloaded correctly. And then we'll jump into like the settings and stuff like that. Basically, it's colors of your gauges, so you can make it all one color. You can make your numbers one color, your needles another color, and each needle could be its own independent color. And then your readout display here can be another color. And I think they say like you got choice of like, it says 600 colors, but it's, you know, keep in mind it's like, you know, bajillion shades of green, a bajillion shades of blue, whatever, right? So anyhow, you just figure out that sweet spot for you. So let's, moment of truth, let's turn it on. 16895. Actually we wrote down 96, but yeah, you know, Close enough. And oh, that's interesting. Through the camera, you can see like color change a little bit, but it's staying solid on my side as a ugly beige or whatever. I'm wondering if the gas gauge reads correctly. So I'm looking at that gas gauge there, but comparing it to that one, granted, it takes a minute for this thing to come up, and yeah, it's showing full. So this one, you got to wait for that needle to slowly move its way up. This was immediate, so it looks like the gas gauge is reading correctly. Let's do our turn signals. Oh, duh. I don't know what other lights go on up in there. Let's see. Nope, not that. Oh, there's cruise control. You see that come on. I'm trying to think what other stuff that I might be able to trigger. Battery, yeah. All right, well, let's start it. Let's see what it looks like with the Tach going, and then we'll jump into the color changing. There you go. So this is blue, so you know what color we got to make the gauges, right? Although I think I want to make this a separate color, so let's take them one at a time, make our changes, and let's see how good we can make this thing look. All right, guys, so we're ready now to, change the colors or whatever. There is a blurb in there about the fuel gauge, so I did want to call that out. And sorry it's a little dark in here because I wanted to show the LEDs off a little bit better, but it does talk about the fuel level display, and I guess if you have to reset that, then you can do that as well. But I think they recommend you have a full tank when you put this in, which, as I showed you earlier, I just happen to have, so I kind of lucked out on that. But just as a heads up, fill up your gas tank, that way you start, on a good run there. So anyhow, to get to the mode or whatever you want to call it, you have to hold your trip meter button in and move your dial to accessory at the same time, and then you can release. You'll see it'll say setup on, something like that. So let me go ahead and do that real quick. And then you let it go. So you see here it's flashing on, so that means we're in this setup mode, and I'll just cycle through. I'm not going to do the setup myself right now, but I just want to show you that you get to choose kind of the different things. Oh, and then there's also I think a gear indicator with this, for those of you who like to know what gear you're in. You could adjust the brightness. So here are the colors. If you wanted to change them all together, you can do that. Just the dial. LCD. The speedometer needle. The Tach needle. And then you go back to on, which is the start of the menus. So then you can kind of go from there. Yeah, so let me get my colors set up, and yeah, we'll take a look at what it looks like after I get mine done. All right, so I'm in the setup process, and the reason I'm bringing you guys back is because I wanted to show you how this works, because it is a little tricky. So once you're in that mode, you cycle through to whatever it is you want to change. So like I showed you, it was like brightness, all, which is everything. You're going to do it uniform color. You can focus on the dials, which are these right now that I just did. And when you're there, you have to take an additional step to be able to manipulate those colors. And like I said, you got, I think it's 600 different shades that you have to go through. Now they have a table in the directions that gives you a ballpark of what number you want to get to. So like if you're trying to get to blue, I forget where the first shade starts, but you can go from like, I don't know, say 325 up to 350 or whatever, right? So that's kind of how that works. So we're going to go ahead and go back into the setup mode. So it's saved. Now see, it's set to dial. So I'm going to switch this now to LCD. So we're going to adjust this color. And this one, I don't want to be the same. I want it to be a lighter color so it's easier to read. So now that we're there, you cycle your switch from off back to accessory, and it'll give you a number. So now we're at 18. That is that color, right? So if you hold the button down, it'll increment, and you see the shades changing as you hold it down. And again, it goes all the way up to 600, right? Doesn't take forever. But you understand what I mean, right? So you're gonna take a little bit of time and work your way there. So I want something light colored. And I'm just going through it just because I want to see what, so maybe I'll go 535. That's a nice, pretty plain Jane color for that data. I may change it in the future, whatever. Now that I have it, cycle off, back to on. It says saved, and now it's showing the LCD. And then you go to speedometer, cycle it, and then you can switch to those colors. So I just wanted to point that out really quick because I thought it was important that I tell you how that gets changed. And essentially you follow that same process for whatever setting you want on this. All right, guys, so there you go. That's my version of it. I wanted to do the blue to match my paint. I wanted to keep the red needles. The LCD one, I'm on the fence on right now. I'm not sure if I want to stick with this color. I wanted to keep it pretty vanilla, just because that's where I'm getting some data from, right? Tank and all that. I wanted to make it something with good contrast so I could easily see the characters, and I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling like I'm getting that from this particular color, so I'll toy around with it. I'll figure out where I want to land, but it looks awesome. I didn't buy this specifically for the look. That was kind of a side benefit. The real reason I bought this was because I wanted a tachometer, and I didn't want to do the police one that comes up here. I just didn't feel like that was something I wanted. So this was an alternative. Harley Davidson accessories, are very expensive. This one is, I think, 400 bucks. So I don't know if anybody aftermarket makes it, but if you can find one, share that in the comments below, because I would like to find a more cost-efficient alternative gauge for the people, because that's a lot, right? Like, yeah, I don't know. So there you go. All right, guys, so that's going to be a wrap for today's video. Like I said, cool accessory, super easy to put on. And when I first bought it, I wasn't sure if I was going to have to take it into the dealership to get flashed or something. So the fact that they give you the cable, it took like a hot second to get the mileage data moved over to it. Like, it just does it on its own. You plug it in, you turn it on, and bam, it's there. And then use of it is very simple. Changing out the colors, the instructions are done really well. I think they did a good job. I mean, to be quite honest, like, you don't get this kind of quality from offshore vendors for that, in comparison to this. Like, I've had aftermarket speedometers on other bikes, and it nowhere close to this. However, you're paying for it 100%, probably 200%. It would be nice if it was half price, but it'd be nice if a lot of things were half price. That's just my opinion. Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you find some value. If you're on the fence, like, oh man, I really want to get a tachometer, but I'm not sure, blah, blah, blah. That's where I was. Do I think this is worth it? At the moment, yeah. I like the look. I like the technology. I like the fact that I get my tachometer. So now I've got to see, how much do I use this, right? How much value does it bring? And that's going to be seen over the next, month or so. And yeah, once I get it to burn in a little bit, I'll come back and we'll do a product review on it. So until that video does post, I hope to see you in the wind.